So we've commenced recording. It being the evening of Wednesday, October 12th, and a quorum being present, I'll open the meeting of the Conservation Commission pursuant to Governor Baker's signing of Senate Bill 2475, an act related to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and as extended by the state legislature in July of 2022. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will meet utilizing the Zoom online option. Instructions and invitations are available at the town website at www.bellinghamma.org. In the event of technical difficulties, remote access is not guaranteed and the commission cannot be held responsible. Moving forward in this meeting, the chair instructs the meeting administrator to withhold access to speak at the meeting until or unless such persons requesting to speak are visible on screen and respectfully request such access. Okay. We will proceed with the first continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuation of public meeting in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the request for determination of applicability to determine the jurisdiction of the isolated wetland status as a vernal pool. The isolated vegetated wetlands located at Assessors Map 87, Parcel 63.5, 0 Deer Run Road, Bellingham, Mass. Tom Schultz, Goddard Consulting, Northborough, Mass. Has submitted the filing on behalf of Ron Lucier, Bellingham, Mass. The continuations will be held via the online Zoom option on Wednesday, October 12th at 7. Okay, I see Tom is here. Actually, I can see Tom.
Am I all set?
You are all set.
All right, thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Schutz and I work for Goddard Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Ron Lucier, who owns the property 0 Deer Run Road in Bellingham, Massachusetts. The last hearing I presented our findings from 10 separate site inspections of an isolated depression that's located in the rear of the property at 0 Deer Run Road. We were looking for wetland features along with vernal pool. We were looking to see if there was vernal pool habitat and or vernal pool species located in this isolated depression, as it had been found in 2018 to contain 20 separate egg masses from, I believe it was wood frogs. During our 10 site inspections, we only found 2 egg masses which did not compute as breeding evidence of wood frogs under the state of Massachusetts law. We did also look into 2 large wetlands in the rear of the property. These we found over 170 egg masses in each. We also found actual wetland vegetation along with which included sedges, high bush blueberry, etc. We also found fairy shrimp in these, and we have recordings of chorusing that went along with the findings of the egg masses. We did not find any chorusing in our isolated depressions. That's the small isolated depression that's located in the rear of the property that's in question tonight. We had Anne send us some pictures that she took in 2018 when an abutter said that they found additional evidence of the 20 egg masses, which then reversed the determination of applicability that was finalized in 2017 after the appeal period. She sent those pictures over to you, and I'll just like to share my screen quickly. It says I cannot share.
No, hold on just a sec. Usually we have a member who assists me with this, so you're going to have to be patient, and I will allow that.
Click on him.
Yeah.
You have to click on him first. If you get out of that, I don't know for sure.
Better give me a minute.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's okay.
How's that?
Give it a shot. All right, perfect. That works. All right, so we are looking at some photos here. The first photo that we'll be looking at, this is a photo that I took in March of 2022. You can see this is the isolated depression that was found in the rear of the property that's in question here. And this next photo will be from 2018. You can see the large amount of water that's changed from 2018 to 2022. So here's 2022 again, and here's 2018. At the last hearing, we spoke about different weather patterns and how it could affect these vernal pools and isolated depressions. As it turns out, 2018 was the most rain ever recorded in history from 1900 until 2022. So we got the rainiest year of all time that coincided with the 20 egg masses that was found during this period. We do believe that the 20 egg masses were an anomaly due to the fact that there was a large amount more water in this depression here in the rear of the property. And a normal year like 2017, when B and C group went out and found 0 egg masses, and also like in 2022, where we had more rainfall, you can see that it was above average in this location here. I believe it was 50 inches when the average throughout the 122 years this graph is showing was only 45.4 inches. We believe that the increase of water led to the 20 egg masses, and this was an anomaly. We also had the increase of water due to the fact of this hose being put into that isolated depression. A trench was dug in the rear of the property that was dumping stormwater from a house before it was asked to be removed by the Conservation Commission in 2018. This was also leading to more water being in this isolated vernal pool in the rear of the property here. So again, due to the fact of the large amount of water that was in there, the anomaly year of 2018 being the highest precipitation year of all time on record, we believe that these 20 egg masses was just kind of a coincidence. And what we saw out there in 2022, and also a B and C group kind of came to the conclusion of in 2017, when the original negative determination came to, that this is not an isolated depression. We still agree with that. We still agree that this is not a vernal pool. We agree with B and C's conclusion on that. Next, I'd just like to show some of the other images that were sent to us. So these were some of the images of the vernal pool egg masses that was sent to us. There's not really any context into where these egg masses were actually taken. These photos could have been taken anywhere, realistically. We definitely have some egg masses being shown in these, but there's no context on where these are being shown and or where these egg masses could have been. So I'd like to put that on record as well. We'd like to come forward with a proposal, as well as we would like to certify the 2 rear vernal pools. So those will be protected in perpetuity forever. That certification process will be done next spring with Natural Heritage, a full certification process. And in return, we would call this isolated depression in the rear of the property a non-jurisdictional feature that is not an isolated wetland, nor is it a vernal pool, as in 2017, when the original negative determination came for the RDA. That's the finding that this commission found. So I'd like to open up to the commission now, just to answer any questions, take any comments, and go from there.
Sure. First of all, I believe that we have a couple of additional photos that show the context of the location of the pool. But Tom, for your information, I took those pictures personally. So I think that, based on my position as chairman, that they can be relied on as being accurate. I apologize for the glare, but the water was deep and the slopes were slippery, and I didn't want to end up in the bottom of the pool. in terms of the 17 evaluation, uh, the applicant at the time went out and disturbed the soils. They did some test pits right in the area. And when we went out there, the evidence of the soil testing was clearly present. We did not document it. We didn't find any evidence of breeding. But I'm gonna come back to the fact that this year, and what was your findings for the rainfall for the 3 months prior for this year?
Let me actually pull that up quickly because I have that data ready to go that we can look at this website where I pulled the data from.
Sure.
So here's this data here. So this is December of 2021 to November. As we're going up. So this is April 2022. We got 58.7 inches of rain at this point. So that is over the average. It's almost the most we got was in 2018, which was 65 inches. So that's significantly less than what we got in 2018, but still over the average of 49.2, which was taken from 2010 to 2022. If we change that up to 1900 or even 1903, we'll see that the averages don't change, but we still have 2018 as being the weird anomaly year, while the rest of the averages kind of stay the same. We have these jumps. We never saw the amount of rain that we saw in 2020 or in 2018. And here that is. Here's this data here with 2018 being the rainiest section of data.
Okay, can you go back to the previous screen?
So this is 2010 to 2022 data.
Okay, so at what point does the new year begin?
The new year begins. So here's 2018. This is 2017. Here's 2018 right here.
Okay.
As we're building
21, at the end of 21, in the beginning of 22, it looks a little lower. And what's really interesting, Tom, about this is that you're looking at Worcester County. Of course, we're in Norfolk County, and a drought was declared at the end of May based on 3 previous months of significantly reduced rainfall.
Correct, but we can kind of infer that this is very similar data, as Massachusetts, Worcester County and Norfolk County are directly next to each other. And we could also see at the end of 2022, we're dropping there. We only have 44 inches of rain at that point, which is leading to the actual drought itself. But I don't think that changes the fact that 2018, we have 65 inches of rain, which is a significantly which is 15 inches greater than what the average was of that time.
Unfortunately, we have no data other than those 3 data points.
Correct, and we could see that 2018 was the anomaly year with the egg mass as well. In 2017 and 2022, we only found 0 and 2 egg masses, opposed to the 20 egg masses that was found in 2018.
Irrespective,
we believe that this is the 2018 was an anomaly, and it just was the fact that the large amount of water in the depression, and also the piping of the water from the house leading into the pool was leading to the large amount of vernal pool species finding this habitat and using it. While when we have a small amount of rainfall, the pool itself is much smaller and doesn't actually serve the same purpose as it did in 2018, the anomaly year.
Okay, we were out in the field in 2018. I was out there personally. We were out there with the town planner, and there was no evidence of that pipe. And we were only out there at one time. That's when we discovered the egg masses. I have no idea where the pipe came from or what the purpose of the pipe was. It's kind of hard to imagine that someone would run that pipe, 100+ feet into that isolated depression. But when we actually have
something that came from the Conservation Commission from April 11th of 2018 that asked for the removal of that pipe from that actual pool itself. Let me just share this with you quickly. This was shared by Ann to us.
Okay.
This is the document that we received from Ann Matthews, advising the applicant to remove that overflow pipe from the infiltration basin into the actual pool itself.
Or some other revisions. Moving the overflow pipe. from
I
the-
think that was in the design, Tom. There was a design that they had with the planning board that shows an overflow pipe being put down into that basin. We didn't even know that they went in there and did these test pits. This is.
So in 20, yeah, so this was being used as a detention basin before the fact, before the 2018 evidence came, and that's why the overflow pipe was in there, because it was being used as a detention basin, which is quoted as infiltration basin here. The trench is still intact in the field if you'd like to go out and see it. That's where the actual pipe is, and the pipe can also be seen kind of scattered off to the side. So it was in fact in there, and our applicant got this letter to remove it from that section. And he did, and that's why we have less water in there in the 2021, 2022 seasons.
Don't move the letter.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think I.
We must have a copy of that letter.
Well, I'm sure we did. I just.
I
don't have
think
it.
what happened is
The
the
Travers of Andrews Engineering,
Travis Brown.
Travis Brown had designed the stormwater management structure, and it had an overflow pipe. And we said, you're gonna have to move the structure and the pipe. I don't believe that we ever saw, I have no recollection of ever seeing an overflow pipe from some other structure channeling water into that depression. Because what
Yeah.
inference here is that there was, someone was trying to drain another area and directing the water directly into that pipe. And it looked like it was about a 6-inch pipe. It was a pretty good size.
It is a pretty substantial pipe that was corrugated that was used to direct water into the actual depression itself. If you go out in the field right now, you could still see the trench where the pipe was actually laid. It hasn't been removed since then because you put the 50-foot no disturb zone in, and Ron didn't want to change that kind of feature and have any further consequences to the Conservation Commission. So if you'd like to do a site walk, we could kind of view that as well.
No, we did see it when we were out there because there was a complaint that he was cutting trees in the no disturb zone. So we went out there and we saw the pipe, and it was only the administrator and myself, and we questioned the pipe, like, where did this come from? Because we had no recollection. And so what is the contention? What was the source of the water from that pipe?
We believe that it was piping from, I think it was piping from the house being built, or some of the kind of disturbance there. That's where I believe it to be from. Ron's on the call too. He could also answer that question, as he is the owner of the property.
Yeah.
If he wants to just
Now, does
unmute
he
himself,
own the
because
property where the house is being constructed?
he owns the property where the house is being constructed, and he also owns the property where the current depression is located.
All right, so the house that's under construction, he owns.
I believe so. Ron, if you want to unmute yourself, that would be great. So you can just kind of add to this.
Is it Ron
if
or Ron?
possible? It's Ron,
Oh, okay.
but
There's Robert Lussier.
yeah, no, I see that as well.
Ron doesn't own the house.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we're going to get any kind of input from
That's okay.
that, but
Tom, we don't think that Ron owns the house that's under construction, because he's been complaining about trash that's accumulated around that house by the people who are building it. So I don't think he owns that. And for the life of me, I can't understand why someone, even if they were removing water from a cellar hole, would use a 6-inch pipe and run it that far. I think that this.
I think we're kind of getting away from the kind of the fact is that pipe is being used to transport water into the pool itself, adding to the amount of water that was in there in 2018, along with the fact that in 2018 we had the most amount of rain ever.
And we are unsure the source of that water. And until we know what the source of the water is, the pipe could have had no conveyance. And it could have been in anticipation of future construction. That's what we're saying. We need to know what the water is.
Correct.
I mean,
But again, we still have that one anomaly year of 6 or 15 additional inches of water being precipitated into that section. So even with the pipe not being there, we're still having an immense amount more water being added to that section that would allow for 20 egg masses to be found there. It's just increasing the amount of volume in that area, which is an anomaly and has been an anomaly with the egg masses as opposed to our findings of B and C group in 2017 and Gata Consulting's group in 2022.
so
Oh.
here are the minute meetings. And I don't know if this will clarify things, but what we have here is the minute meetings from April 11th, 2018. And when we spoke with the design engineer at his request, and what we did is we all three parties agreed to move any disturbance outside the 50-foot no disturb zone to the vernal pool. The limits of the vernal pool marking the highest elevation of water would be considered about 2 feet higher than the elevation of the existing pool water level. Travis expressed concern with being able to shorten and or remove impacts of the newly designed outfall drainage pipe extending from the proposed infiltration basin to outside the 50-foot no disturb zone. So it was still in design. It had not been constructed. This was still a design.
I believe that it was in the process of being constructed. That's why the trench was built.
Well, it was we were out there on the day of April 11th, 2018, and we took the pictures. There was no operating pipe. It was not there.
Okay. Again, I think that we still also have the rainfall data to kind of back up the anomaly.
Okay.
Even it's 15 additional inches of rain
All
that
right,
was in that region at the time.
So right now we have 3 documented visits. We have 17, we have 18, and we have 22. And you found two egg masses in 22, and that's evidence of breeding.
Not under the state of Massachusetts standards. We couldn't certify this. I would also like to ask the question is, in 2018, if you found 20 egg masses, why wasn't the vernal pool certified?
One thing at a time. This is not certification standards under the WPA. I thought we clarified that issue at the last hearing.
We did.
Okay. So the criteria for certification under the WPA is not applicable here.
Okay. In 2018, why did you not certify the depression in the backyard? If you found 20 egg masses, and which is
because we had issued a determination in 17, and in order to memorialize that, what we did is we worked with the planning.
I believe you issued a negative determination concluding that it wasn't a vernal pool in 17, and then after the appeal period in 2018, you went back and amended it, say after evidence was brought forward to the commission.
No, we did not amend it. What we did, working with the planning board, we included the provisions of protection into the planning board permit. So,
but wasn't the determination good for 3 years after the determination?
So that's expired.
In 2017.
That's expired.
But the evidence was brought together in 2018 for this stuff.
Right.
During the 3 years that it was in, that the determination was good for.
That's correct. We did not make or change the determination. We provided evidence to the planning board and requested that they honor the findings for that year in the field in their permit, and they did that.
Sorry, then why was the 50-foot no disturb zone put in place?
Because the planning board and the applicant's engineer agreed that protection should be afforded. It's in their permit. It's
in the planning board permit.
Correct.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. And do you have any comment on our ask to certify the 2 vernal pools behind the property as kind of a mitigation in order to call this a non-jurisdictional isolated depression.
Mr. Chair, aren't those listed somewhere in the information that's provided as being off-site? Are they actually
Correct.
on the property?
They're actually on Conservation Commission land.
So I don't see the point of certifying those as a mitigation when they're already not on your property. I mean, that's claiming something that's not there to claim.
Well, now, to be honest, we have worked with applicants' representatives to certify vernal pools that might be off-site. We did that for Curtis Pond, if you'll recall. However, to do it in exchange, a quid pro quo, if you will,
Right.
to call something that we've seen, evidence of breeding, not a protected area, in exchange for certifying the vernal pools. I don't think that that's a good precedent.
I'd be more amenable if it was somewhere else on the applicant's property themselves, like, okay, there's some pools that we don't really care if are certified or not. They're further away from whatever I want to do, but this one I'd really like to have not be, and we see some point of that. But again, to do it for mitigation for something that's off-site and on conservation land, and give up something that has shown some evidence in the past, at least several times, of vernal pool activity, when those are hard to come by in this neck of the woods, so to speak, anywhere in general Massachusetts, not just on the property, I think is not a good precedent.
Well, all right. Tom, we have another hearing coming. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't, but if I can continue the hearing, I think that would be great.
I'm sorry. what
He wants to request a continuation.
did- Okay.
All right, here's what we'll do. We'll commence working on a determination. We'll continue the hearing to the evening of October 26th at 8 o'clock.
Perfect.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. If you have any additional or new information, please share it.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank-
Okay.
Do we have to vote on
Did
that?
we even take a vote?
Oh, no. Thank you. So that being the case, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of October 26th at 8.
So moved.
Neil,
Second,
Ariane. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote. We have some people in the waiting room. If anyone who's here for the next hearing knows who these folks are.
Who's in the waiting room, Cliff?
Well,
think
we're
we've all
letting
been
everyone
managed.
in now. Okay. All right. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a 700,000 square foot warehouse facility with associated site appurtenances on a 158 acre parcel located off Hartford Avenue, Bellingham, and identified as Assessor's Map parcels 30-73-1, 24-12, and 31-3. The project proposes temporary and permanent impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act of 661 square feet of bordering vegetated wetland, 95 square feet of bank, 561 square feet of land under water bodies, and the 100-foot buffer zone with proposed mitigation, and is located within the riverfront area to Spring Brook. The project also proposes impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw regulations, including 28 linear feet of bank, 15,274 feet of land subject to flooding, bordering or isolated, 651,879 square feet of buffer zone, and 39,357 square feet of isolated vegetated wetlands, 82 square feet of land under water bodies, and 2,484 square feet of vernal pools with proposed mitigation. Andrea Kendall, LEC Environmental Consultants, Grove Street, Worcester, has submitted the filing on behalf of Jeffrey Curley, Bellingham, WS Bellingham Associates, Boylston Street, Chestnut Hill, Mass. The hearing will be held online via the Zoom option on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 at 7:30. Okay.
Well done.
Is Austin, who's?
Yes, sir.
Austin's here. Jeff Curley's here as well.
I see him. Yeah.
Cliff, how are you?
Good, good, good. And I see Brian's here.
Brian is here. I'll take a moment, brief moment. I want to turn things over to Austin and to Brian and Andrea as quickly as possible. But wanted to just take a moment to first introduce the team. My name is Jeffrey Curley. I'm with WS Development. Molly Gasperi, who's the development manager with WS, is here with me this evening as well. We're also joined by our consulting team, Austin Turner, who I'm sure is a familiar face to most of you from Bowler Engineering, and a couple other familiar faces, I believe Andrea Kendall and Brian Madden from LEC Environmental, our wetland consultants. Austin, as I said, is our civil engineer, done our site plan layout, stormwater design, etc. As I said, I'll be brief, but I did want to just give a moment to introduce, for those who aren't familiar with WS Development, we have owned and operated the 3 shopping centers at the intersection with 126 and 495, a little over 30 years in the town of Bellingham. Have done a lot of business with the Conservation Commission over those years, with other regulatory bodies in town. We're very proud of our record and our relationship with the town of Bellingham. As some of you may recall, that we brought forward a 4th project about 15 years ago on the land that is the subject of this evening's filing. It's a parcel of land that Austin will go into a little more detail on, located behind Home Depot in the Crossroads Shopping Center. This project was called the Shops at Bellingham. It was a retail shopping center project. It fell victim to the 2008 downturn, never quite got its feet under it coming out of the 2008 downturn, again, despite efforts by WS to continue through the permitting process. We were ultimately granted an order of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act by the Commission, and in 2015, and have subsequently extended that order, including most recently, just about a year ago. I was in front of the Commission, and you were kind enough to grant us a 1-year extension on that order. And I guess I want to thank the Commission for their patience over the years and willingness to cooperate with us. As I said to you a year ago, what I think was the most important element of that order of conditions was the wetland delineation. We recognize we've got a new notice of intent filing in front of you this evening for a different project, a very different project, and that we're sort of starting from scratch. But the wetland delineation was an important tool. It was the subject of an order of resource area delineation back in 2006, and it was the basis upon which the order of condition was granted. And again, the extensions allowed us to continue to plan for a project on property here. The gating issue historically for us here to bring forward a development has been a traffic constraint in the Route 126 corridor. As I mentioned to you, I think a year ago, we had begun a process about 18 months ago communicating with the town and the DOT in an effort to develop a scope of mitigation that would support the traffic impacts associated with a project of the nature you'll see tonight. And we have worked with the town and the DOT to advance that scope of improvement. We funded preparation of a 25% roadway design. These are improvements that will take place along the Hartford Avenue corridor, south and west of the 495 bridge, including the intersection with North Main Street, adding lane capacity, upgrading signal equipment, etc. Most of it, if not almost entirely, or the entire scope, is necessary to mitigate existing conditions within the corridor. We have included the scope of development that we're planning to present to you this evening as part of the project. And with that, the town has made an application to the state for a MassWorks grant for partial funding of the roadway improvements, and the economic development in part to be realized as part of the grant is the project that will be presented for you this evening. So again, I don't think any of that would have been possible without the commission's patience and willingness to work with us over the years to keep things to keep the order extended. We're still waiting to hear final word on the grant. We have our fingers crossed. We're hopeful that we get good news on that front. But either way, we're looking to push forward with local filings. We've made a filing with the planning board as well, and we're poised to make a submission to MIPA that describes the project again that you'll see tonight. So I'll turn things over to Austin and to some combination of Andrea and Brian. I'm not quite sure where Andrea is. She was catching a flight home today, but some combination of the two to give you a description of the project. So thank you again for the time, and obviously here to field any questions. Take it away, Austin.
All right, great. For the record, Austin Turner with Bowler. And before I get started on kind of the nerdy engineering stuff, just want to take a second, echo Jeff's sentiment. I've been in front of this commission for, I don't know, Cliff and Ann, a decade, perhaps, maybe more. And I think when you saw me last, I had more hair than I do now. It's been a while. I've very candidly appreciated, the opportunity to collaborate with all of you, and I'm looking forward to doing that with this project. We've had some very passionate conversations as part of this, and I think through those discussions have resulted, frankly, in a better project. And like I said, I'm very much looking forward to working with you all as part of this project. And I think what you'll see here and what we're going to work on as we continue to meet with you is, this project has benefited, frankly, from those historical discussions, and I think is improved from the base from where we started off originally. So what I think I'll do tonight, I'm gonna test your technical prowess, Cliff, and ask you to allow me to share my screen. I'm going to give you an overview of the project. I'll go through some of the high-level engineering stuff without making this a protracted conversation. I'm going to pivot to Brian and Andrea to talk about the natural resource areas, where they're categorized, where they are on the site, how they relate to the project, and then what we're doing to compensate for some of the impacts that are going to result from the construction of this project. And I want to make sure I leave enough time at the end of this conversation for a discussion with the commission, answer any questions, figure out what we consider collectively appropriate next steps, and then leave you enough time to vote and issue a positive order of conditions tonight. That all makes sense and feel right?
Yep.
And Cliff, I was trying to get a smile out of you and Ann in the last comment, but I was hoping you guys were paying attention to that. So,
Well, we have a comment for Jeff. The three projects that were constructed by WS Development, the Walmart Plaza, the Home Depot Plaza, and then the Charles River Center. Ann and I wrote the permits for those.
Right.
So we have been around the block.
No, absolutely. And again, we are appreciative of the work you've put in over the years. You recognize that these are voluntary roles for you, and we recognize that you, WS, Town of Bellingham, go back a long way, and appreciate the working relationship we've forged over the years.
So Austin, you should be able to share your screen.
I'm impressed that you trust me to do such things, Cliff.
Yeah, Austin, I don't think we're gonna have the order created tonight.
I can
I don't
settle
think
for
we'll
next
have
week.
it quite ready.
Next week's fine. I don't mind.
That's nice.
Fine.
That was a nice effort to kind of slide that in, though.
No, I'm just trying to make sure you guys are paying attention. That's all.
Yeah.
Can folks see my screen okay?
We can.
Yes.
So what, just for context, some of you are intimately familiar with the property. Some of you may not be, but just by way of a quick overview. This, where my cursor is, that's Hartford Avenue. That's North Main Street. And this is the Crossroads Shopping Center. This box right here is Home Depot. And this is our project back here, which is a 700,000 square foot warehouse and industrial facility. Now, first thing I'm going to start with is I'm happy to, although I didn't have a choice. I am the sacrifice placed on the altar for the access. Many of you are going to recall the discussion we had, and that's where the passionate discussions came about access. Over the last 8 years or so, Jeff and his team have been able to orchestrate it such that we can get access through Crossroads. And with the project being a substantially less traffic generator than was the shops, it allowed us to what we believe is to gain access through Crossroads and make that the access for the property. I say it was a sacrifice because I remember having conversations with this commission about why that couldn't be done for the shops project. So putting that out there, Jeff put me on the altar, and I'm happy to be the sacrifice. What that eliminates is the access, as you may recall, tying into what was considered for the off-ramp improvements. We had an access driveway that went all the way down to North Main Street. And of the many things we talked about, this area down here, which was Wetland M, that was the crossing and where we focused a lot of our attention. That driveway is gone. It's no longer. We do not need that for the project. That, frankly, I think is a pretty significant betterment. So coming through Crossroads for the access, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so folks can kind of see some of the detail here. What we're using here, this is an extension of the existing driveway that comes in. So it's Home Depot and then Crossroads existing driveway. It transitions from the paved surface into that existing trail that's kind of been cleared and somewhat maintained. And then right here, this wetland, and we'll get into this a little bit with Brian and Andrea, this is Wetland A. And these two systems are connected by a stream. That stream has an existing crossing. We are maintaining said crossing and widening and improving that crossing to accommodate the driveway. Now, with the driveway, we've spent some time having conversations with your emergency response personnel. And with this access configuration that we're showing, their initial feedback was that they're favorable to it. It works for them. And they asked us just to make that a little bit wider. Originally, we were contemplating it between 30 and 36 feet. They asked us to make it 40. So the plans that you have before you and the numbers that were referenced by Cliff in his opening remarks about the calculated impacts are reflective of that wider driveway that the emergency response folks asked us to incorporate. So that driveway comes into the property. You can see what we've done here. This area in here, previously under the shops project, was considered partially for buildings and partially for parking. What we've tried to do here is be cognizant and respectful to those wetland resource areas, maintain them by kind of weaving this access driveway through there. Its primary point will be to allow trucks to get back to the delivery and loading bays, what I'm going to call top of the building or the part of the building which is most proximate to 495. And then we have a spur coming off that driveway, which provides access to the rear of the building, also for employees parking, and then again for the lower part of the building for delivery bays and some of the other ancillary parking areas. As you can see here, we've kept that driveway physically out of those resource areas. And generally, as you get down to this lower part, we've tried to the extent that we were able to mirror, if not keep that driveway further interior to the site from what was contemplated as part of the shop's driveway. So we've been trying to, and this design is reflective of that driveway at least being within that previous work footprint, but in most cases further interior to the property to provide some additional buffering to those wetland resource areas. What we're doing here in terms of stormwater there was a lot of discussion, spent a lot of years with the commission. You had a very comprehensive and thorough peer review done. I expect that we're going to have a similar exercise going as part of this project. What we've tried to do is through all the feedback that you provided us, through all the feedback we got with your peer review consultant, all those discussions, the results of those conversations are embedded in this design. So from a stormwater perspective, all the science and math we generated, we maintained that. We didn't want to undo all that. That was a lot of time and effort spent. So we have stormwater systems in here, and generally there's a large subsurface system located in here, a large subsurface system located here, smaller subsurface system here, and then in this general vicinity here, we have a surface basin. So all the performance expectations, design parameters, and what we came to, we embedded all of that into that design. So it's very comprehensive in that regard. It is frankly an exceedance of the Mass DEP standards, as well as those which the town has, some of which frankly on a local level are more strict and stringent than those which the state enforces. So we've incorporated both of those performance expectations into this design, as well as the items that we had talked about historically. From a utility perspective, what we're doing is we are connecting to the infrastructure that is located in the Crossroads Shopping Center. There's going to be water line connections that build off and extend from that infrastructure. Our sewer is going to be conveyed up to the existing gravity system in Crossroads by way of a new force main. Electric, telecom are going to come through this new driveway, and we're going to make those infrastructure connections that way. We'll get to Andrea and Brian here momentarily. I know that's kind of the start of the show. What generally speaking, what we're doing along the perimeter of this project, we've piggybacked and expanded on the mitigation that we had contemplated as part of the shops project to frankly improve upon the existing resource areas that are going to be altered or displaced as part of the construction of this project, and then make them contiguous to the more viable and valuable wetland resource areas. So Andrea and Brian will be able to speak to that, and we'll get into a bit more of a granular discussion there. The last piece before I pivot, what we've also done here, we have that's the shops project right there. What we're doing as part of the mitigation, this will be a graphic we'll get to momentarily, but the area located in here, we have about 40 acres of new conservation land that we're proposing to deed kind of in perpetuity and conserve in that regard. And these properties in here are existing conservation restrictions that we're intending to basically extend off and build from. So what we'll do in this general area here, this is Wetland M, this is the Atlantic White Cedar Swamp. The bulk of this is proposed to be in a new conservation restriction. And then as well, this area kind of up in the corner is also proposed to be in a conservation restriction. Now, those areas are reflective of the agreements that we had made previously when we had gone through this conversation with the commission. And frankly, we've expanded upon those with the new compact footprint that we're proposing for this project. It's enabled to us to expand those conservation restrictions that we're proposing here as part of our comprehensive mitigation package. So we think that's an improvement and upgrade, frankly, over the last project. So what I'd like to do is pause here momentarily. If there's any questions about some of the engineering stuff, I was at a very high level. I didn't want to get too deep into the engineering weeds just yet, but I'm happy to. And I wanted to pause for a second in the event there are any questions about the things that are under my control before I hand it over to Andrea and Brian to start talking about some of the wetland related items.
So for the record, would you quantify the increase in the area that will be preserved by CR as opposed to the previous?
Sure. So that is going to be, I'm going to pop that exhibit up. I have it right here. Hang on one sec. So the conservation restriction. One sec. This is going to slide into your screen here. I'm assuming you can see that now, right?
Yes.
So this here.
Whoops.
This is now 42 acres. We've added about 3 acres to it.
Could you back up for a minute, please, Austin? We lost you there. We lost you.
The area comes from nudging this forward. Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
You're breaking up a little bit, Austin.
Everybody hear me all right?
I think we can understand you.
The numbers, I
Okay.
think,
I'll, if you can't hear me, give me,
Is Neil hearing?
Neil,
Yes,
can you hear Austin?
no.
I don't know.
off
if
and
he's-
on.
I don't
He
know if
comes,
he's-
he's in and out and now he's frozen.
You,
No,
can you
all
all
right,
hear
hang on a
me?
now he's back again.
Okay.
you guys got me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, you're back
All right.
again.
All right, good.
Don't, Austin, just don't move the screen around. I think that's when it glitches a little bit.
Okay, got it. So what you can see, this red boundary is the proposed conservation easement that we have. The total area of it is just over 42 acres. What we were proposing originally was a little bit under 40, so we're nearly 3 acres more than what we were considering before. The bulk of that area comes from our ability to push this, I'm going to call it an east direction, but basically plan up. We've expanded this to capture more of wetland M and its buffers in there. And then we've also included this about 2.5 acres, which was previously considered as part of the shops and was embedded as part of that order. So total, we're adding about 3 acres to the conservation easement, and it marries up against existing conservation easements too, to provide some continuity there.
Okay.
Would you like me to get into the Andrea and Brian part of the show?
Sure.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Have you performed additional test pits in the areas proposed for the infiltration basins?
That's a good question, Neil.
No,
So
the old ones were done a very long time ago and probably in different locations, if I recall.
it's a good question. So we haven't done new test pits, but we were careful to put the systems in the locations of the old ones and rely upon that data. I remember specifically having gone out there with this commission, frankly, I think on Saturday and Sunday mornings with groundwater monitoring probes and a number of different things Anne's laughing because she remembers it was like January and February where we were out there freezing and dropping tape measures down pipes. So I remember those fondly. And we haven't done new test pits, Neil. If that's something the commission wants us to do, we could do some confirmatory testing out there. We're pretty confident that based on the material here, which is frankly gorgeous sands, that we're not going to experience a substantial change for the negative in groundwater. But if we need to do confirmatory testing, we're open to that.
I didn't have any way to reference the existing to the prior. I figured they'd moved a little bit at least.
They have, but we were trying to be very careful to put the systems over where we had done a lot of the testing before, so we didn't have to reinvent any of that.
Okay, thank you.
It might
Yep,
come
you're
into
welcome.
play a little more with the southern area where you've got that little satellite parking area. You've got an infiltration structure under that. Due to the proximity of the wetlands, you may not have a lot of separation of groundwater for that one. But
No, it's a good point. It's a good point, Cliff. And what we tried to do there too, because if you recall, that was a similar location to where we had that satellite parking area for the shops project.
Okay.
And we had some testing in there. So we used that data to provide, we kind of worked up. So we started the grading by maintaining the original separations and then going up from there. But if, like I said, if the commission wants the additional testing done, we're happy to do some of that confirmatory work in specific locations.
obviously, this is going to necessitate, some site work on behalf of the commission. So I know Brian and Andrea are probably expecting that. One of the things we'll be looking for is we'll be looking at areas of closest proximity to resource areas. And we'll want the resource area and the roadways or the extent of grading located in the field along with the stormwater management structures. This is moving ahead, but
Sure.
you're looking for guidance, and so that's one of the things. We're hands-on. We'll be out there.
No, you're absolutely right. So one of the things that we just recently completed is we reestablished by way of staking the wetlands that are within the jurisdictional boundaries of this project in the field. So those were recently reestablished in the field. And, assuming, and I think this is a fair assumption, the commission wants to do a site walk. And if it's helpful, I think, Cliff, what you were alluding to is having some of those specific site features that aren't just wetland flags, but design features established in the field, so you can get, or you being the commission can get a sense of proximity and where things are. We can certainly look at that too, and we're very much open to doing that.
Okay. So I guess it's time for Brian and Andrea, or Andrea.
All right. So what I'll do here, the plan I'm going to bring up. So this plan that Brian and Andrea can speak to. This is clearly the project, and it's got a lot of labels on it. And we try to make it big so people can see it on the screen. I apologize in advance if it's more obnoxious than I am. What we did is we color coded these. So the darker green colors are the isolated lands that are locally jurisdictional under your bylaw. The lighter green colors are the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act wetlands. So, for example, this is wetland M, this is wetland A. I think this is Y, or this is, I'm sorry, I up here. It's kind of contiguous. The darker colors are those isolated systems kind of scattered throughout the project. So,
Excuse me, Austin, can you tell me the
I
sheet?
don't want to be wetland scientist.
Austin, can you tell me the sheet number of that?
I don't recall seeing that one.
Is this a sheet in the submission, Austin?
This is not a sheet, and this is not a sheet number that was in the plan. Email this to you, and we created it specifically for the meeting tonight.
Okay,
That would be
very helpful.
very helpful to have a copy of that.
Okay.
Absolutely. The intent, and is that everything I'm showing you tonight, I can simply email you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So no conversation, my friend.
Right. I'll take over to begin with. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. So in addition to this plan, the NOI had provided a table of a breakdown of all the different wetland areas and their jurisdictional status, whether or not they're protectable under the state act and or the bylaw. We've also, for the past 2 years in 2021 and 2022, have conducted exhaustive vernal pool assessments on site to provide a comprehensive inventory of what actually functions as a vernal pool. And we've provided greater detail of what does and what does not function within the notice of intent. And I'd be happy to go through it in more detail, but I guess just to start with, I'll keep it at a high level, and then we can dial into some of the details as questions come up. So as Austin had indicated, the project has been designed to avoid and minimize wetland impacts to the greatest extent feasible. Coming into the site, we are utilizing that existing woods road. The wetland A series in the northern portion of the site is associated with Spring Brook. Spring Brook becomes perennial a little bit further to the east. I think it's essentially where there's drainage contribution from the on-ramp to 495. There's a outlet there within the layout for the state highway that discharges some stormwater. And I believe based on the prior calculations and information that was submitted, I think going back to the ORAD, that's where it became perennial. And that's certainly where the stream begins to channelize a little bit more in a very well-defined narrow corridor as it continues further to the south and then ultimately extends under 495 to the east. So the actual crossing itself is proposed within an intermittent stream section of the Spring Brook. Under existing conditions, there's a 42-inch culvert underneath the Woods Road. We are proposing to upgrade that to a 16-foot wide by 4-foot tall 3-sided box culvert. Whereas under existing conditions, it doesn't comply with stream crossing standards. We are significantly improving that and designing something that does comply with stream crossing standards. And there's specific detail sheets on the crossing profile detail along with the narrative write-up of that. But moving into the site, as Austin had alluded to, we had strategically designed the roadway to avoid a cluster of 3 isolated vegetated wetlands that are protected under the local bylaw. Those are X, W, and B. The prior shop's proposal essentially eliminated those 3 areas, 2 of which we did determine based on the vernal pool assessments that they'd actually do function as vernal pools, wetland B and wetland W itself. And this past spring, I did document some vernal pool breeding activity within wetland X, a small portion of that. There was some spotted salamander breeding activity, but there was only 2 egg masses that ultimately it did dry up, and it's not certifiable, but it may be able to provide some vernal pool habitat functions in some years. So we strategically avoided that cluster, and then coming into the site, we've attempted to minimize and avoid impacts to the greatest extent feasible. The majority of the wetlands within the project footprint are previously degraded wetland systems that were created within the former sand and gravel operation. There's very little topsoil associated with these areas. They're overlaying sand, gravel, rock, almost semi-perch type conditions. Majority of these areas are dominated by invasive vegetation, whether it be glossy buckthorn or even there's some Phragmites popping up in the wetland E system. That's the long trough area within the easterly portion of the building and parking area. Again, these wetlands within the project footprint largely exhibit low quality, low functions and values, no real important wildlife habitat value. A lot of them are also somewhat routinely disturbed by existing ORV, ATV, dirt bike activity, specifically wetland E. There's a number of cross trails that cut through it, in addition to basically a trail that goes right through a portion of it on the southeasterly end of it. So the notice provided a breakdown of what the wetland impacts are per wetland area. We divided that in between the state jurisdictional wetlands, in addition to the isolated wetlands protected under the bylaw. We are proposing or requesting a waiver from the bylaw for greater than 5,000 square feet of wetland alteration. We are proposing to provide wetland replication on the order of 1.6 to 1. And so what we tried to balance here is focusing our wetland replication areas where overlapping within previously considered areas and or previously existing altered areas. We've attempted to minimize further intrusion into forested upland areas, and we are requesting relief on the 2-to-1 mitigation ratio and providing the 1.6 to 1. But what we are proposing to create is a significant amount of those wetland replication areas to function as high quality vernal pool habitat. And based on, my extensive analysis and observations of the vernal pool habitat conditions, we're confident that we can create some high quality vernal pool habitat out there. And obviously that's going to come with a lot of careful oversight during creation, but also adequate monitoring to ensure that they successfully establish and function appropriately. In addition, we are proposing to provide the open space through the conservation restriction, approximately 45 acres cumulatively. And as Austin had indicated and shown on that prior map, largely overlapping with the Atlantic white cedar swamp and buffer zones associated with that. That also includes a number of vernal pool habitat areas as well. And we believe that the project, as proposed through the mitigation, will provide a long-term net benefit over existing conditions and sustainable wetland systems that are better protected in comparison to existing conditions. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, or others can jump in. Andrea, I don't know if you had anything further to add on that front.
With LEC, I think I'd also just like to add that we are providing buffer zone restoration by way of plantings and then seed mixes. So I think that we're restoring some of the, in particular, the trail between the two isolated wetlands on Plan West, and then all along the project development area. And that was it. Thanks.
So the green areas on this view, those are the replication areas?
Yeah, correct, Neil. So there's a combination of things here, and I can zoom in a little bit. For example, this area up here, the northeast, this kind of crosshatched area, that's a wetland replication area. The kind of triangular pattern is where we're doing some buffer enhancement as well. So some of these things will be contiguous to each other. And this is a very zoomed out plan, what we've provided. And I can, if you'd like to, I can get into the very detailed plans that are included as part of the plan set that show what these areas are and what specific treatments are being given. So it's a combination of buffer restoration as well as wetland recreation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I anticipate once we get out and start evaluating the site, and as Austin agreed, the closest points of impacts will be staked in the field. Then what we can do is we always come back to the hearing and for the record state the findings or conditions that we saw in the field. We don't make any decisions out there, but that would be an appropriate time to review case by case the areas that are proposed for mitigation. We'll see them in the field, take a look at them, and then we can evaluate. We're going to ask you guys to carry the load with paper, and then we'll evaluate, and see if there might be areas that might be better for instance, buffer zone enhancement, or expanded, or reduced in other areas. So the plans are great, the narrative is good, but nothing is better than field work.
I agree, Cliff, and I want to get out there with the commission. We want to get out there with the commission. Would it be amenable to the commission? What I'd like to do, we're going to deploy the surveyor out in the field as we did. They spent about 3.5 weeks out there reestablishing the flags, if you can believe it, because it was a lot of work.
I can believe it.
Would it be
to verify the delineation in 06?
Absolutely. Would it be acceptable to the commission for me to put together with the team a graphic highlighting the areas that we think are appropriate for us to establish in the field for the proposed site features? Share that with the commission, presumably through Ann, and get concurrence on that before we deploy the team out into the field.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Austin, if I may, I think that's a great idea, and maybe we're numbering points on that plan so that we could, flag and number the flags in the field for easy reference for folks.
Absolutely.
Once they get out, but I think that makes a lot of sense to get a plan nailed down and get a comprehensive list so we can be efficient about the time in the field.
Yep.
And the easier it is for us to identify and see what we need to see when we're out there quickly and accurately, it will help all of us.
I'm glad you agree, because I said it selfishly, the numbering idea was for me entirely, so,
Now that helps us,
Yeah, me
less
too.
time we spend wondering where we are.
I'll tell you, I looked at some of the photographs that were submitted with the application, and I'm shocked at the vegetative change over the last time we were out there, probably 14. It's unbelievable. It's a forest. So procedurally, well, let me do this before we talk about procedurally. Are there any questions from the commission relative to the initial presentation?
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Sure.
So in the past, we've talked about wetlands replication, and I believe in maybe the Campanelli project on High Street, we talked about the ability to replicate successfully a vernal pools habitat, or maybe it was another project around town. I do remember it coming up as a discussion point with the developer and their wetland scientists and so on. Have we ever received, to your knowledge, Mr. Chair, documentation indicating successful vernal pool replications, examples of them, pictures, affidavits, and so forth, confirming these have been done? Because it might have even been just the project that was the warehouse, Trimark warehouse that we talked about it, but I don't think we ever got assurances or scientific evidence that that was something that was an established scientific environmental replication process.
Okay, Mike, not in this town, not in this town, but what we will, I'm not getting ahead of myself, but we're going to be working to establish a scope for a project review with BSC, and the environmental person that we'll be working with there is Matt Byrne, who wrote the Vernal Pools of New England. So he's a multiple presenter, Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, very experienced in the field. So he'll be working with the commission and with the applicant to, determine viability of certain sites. I mean, if it's not going to be a viable site, then it has to be moved because it won't work. So these are all things that we'll discover as we get involved in the nuts and bolts of the project.
Hey, Cliff, would you mind if I asked you a quick question?
Go ahead.
Just kind of segue or parlaying what you just described in terms of the review. My recollection historically is that with the peer review, the commission is going to release this particular on the wetland items as you just described. And then I'm accustomed to having the commission also look at stormwater too. What I'd like to do, and I think we were successful in navigating this previously on past projects, is that if the commission is going to employ a specific consultant on the stormwater items, that said consultant has been coordinated, at least with the planning board, so that there's one cohesive review and not multiple reviews. And you're nodding your head, so I assume that's something you're accustomed to doing as well.
We're already working with the planning board in that regard.
I figured you guys, you've done this once or twice before, so I figured you were in front of that.
So you got to smile, you want.
And I just wanted to remark back to Mike regarding replication and restoration that has taken place and some of the other projects in our town. As you know, we have those monitoring periods. We do require monitoring reports and bonding. And we do get those reports. We get them yearly for a number of years. But we have not had any experience with vernal pools restoration.
Yeah, just to jump in quickly on that subject, I think once we walk the site, we can certainly look at areas that, the vast majority of areas that are functioning as vernal pools out here have been disturbed in the past and incidentally created. So with a little bit more intent and purpose, I'm very confident that we can create some good quality habitat, and certainly would welcome any feedback from Matt on that subject.
So this will be the fourth gravel pit project that we've overseen So we're familiar with the pitfalls, literally, of some of these projects, the ledge, the precipitous drops, yeah. So are there any other questions from the commission? Are there any questions from anyone in the general public? And it seemed like there were quite a few people here.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Rob Daly, 131 North Main Street, MG Land. Just wonder if we could, one, get a copy of some of these drawings, because very hard to see. And number two, is it possible I could probably do the site walk with you when you do it?
well, Rob, it's going to be pretty strenuous.
Welcome.
But
You're welcome.
as far as I'm concerned, the commission has no control over who can access the site. We welcome you, so you can see what we're doing. But that will be up to the applicant to determine,
To grant the permission.
to grant
to
the
do that.
permission for you to do it.
Okay. How does the applicant feel?
We're happy to touch base and once we get things scheduled, we can talk about that. Happy to
Okay,
provide you my contact information through Ann, and we can furnish you with some copies of plans as well.
all right, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Is that it?
Are there any other questions from anyone in the public or the commission? Okay, now this is a not too subtle reminder to the conservation commissioners that we have a major site inspection coming up this Saturday. I hope no one has forgotten that. Yeah.
I sent them a reminder today.
Oh, okay. You were reminded duly. All right, so looking ahead, we're looking at the possibility of continuing in about a month. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to get our peer reviewer on board. Once we get that squared away, we'll ask Jeff to submit information to them. And they can commence their review. In the meantime, we're going to be approaching a pretty busy time of year. What is availability for the commission for potential site walks? I'd like to get something on the books before we continue, so that we can get the review moving. So we have the 15th.
That's this Saturday.
That's this Saturday. And we're not going to piggyback on top of what we're doing this Saturday, because that will be a lengthy inspection. So before the meeting of November 9th, that would leave the 22nd, the 29th, or
Yeah.
5th.
We can't do the 29th.
We can't do the 29th. Unfortunately, if this were summer, we'd have an opportunity to get out there after work and we could put in 2 or 3 hours. However, it gets dark early. There's no way we can do that. And because of the project size and importance, I think this is something that we would like to have as many commission eyes on as possible. In other words, it's something that I don't want the administrator and the chair to have to do themselves.
I'm good on the 22nd and the 5th, Mr. Chairman,
Same here.
The 22nd,
and the 5th.
5th.
I could do the 29th too, but obviously without
We're
you,
going to be out on
it
that.
just wouldn't be the same.
The 22nd doesn't. So now
Hey,
this
Cliff, can I add a little bit of context perhaps to the conversation and reflecting dates?
Yep.
I think in the interest of making the site walk the most efficient possible, and we had talked about us getting some of the improvements staked out in the field, so when we're out there, we can look at resource areas and improvements. what I think makes the most sense, at least in terms of time, if we're talking about the 5th, and that date has potential for the rest of the commission members, I think that would give me enough time to work with Ann over the next couple days to identify what areas we want to get surveyed and staked in the field, and then get the survey team mobilized so they can do that work. It's going to be a little bit of time for them to do it. It's kind of rugged out there, and there's probably a lot of points we're going to want to get established. I think the 5th makes sense from our end. I'll get confirmation from the survey team. If that works for the commission, I think that's an appropriate duration for a site walk.
Okay, the sight lines probably won't be as clear as they were earlier either.
No, they won't, but I know they were pounding stakes in the ground so that they didn't get, it was a bit more durable.
Okay, so why don't we, Brian, Andrea, will you be available for the 5th?
Yes, for me, yeah.
Well,
I heard Andrea say yes.
oh, okay, I didn't hear that, but I saw Brian nodding, so that's
Yes.
good. All right. Okay, so with that being the case, we have people coming from a distance. We could start this one at 8:30. Is that too early?
Earlier the better, Cliff. I like being out in the woods with you guys at like 6:30 when it's, sub-zero and we're dropping groundwater probes down.
It's still dark now, though. It's 6:30. Okay, then here's what we'll do. I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing for the evening of November 9th at 7, and to conduct a site visit meeting at the Home Depot parking lot at 8:30
On November 5th.
on November 5th.
What
Matt?
time? Was that 8 or 8:30, Mr. Chairman?
8:30.
Thank you. So moved.
Apparently I moved and seconded.
Okay, so moved by Neil, seconded by Ariane. Is there any further discussion or anything to add? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3 members opposed. Okay.
Does this project have a name yet? We called the other one the shops, just so I'm making a note in my calendar here.
How about warehouse?
How about warehouse
We
in
can-
Bellingham?
How about RB Warehouse, really big? All right,
I was thinking of something more in honor of Cliff and Ann. Because what we haven't told you yet, this gets to the end, it's going to be a bronze statue at the front, which is them looking over like kind of Greek style of the
Name the
project.
formal pool after us.
I think we
Okay.
should just stick with the shops.
Well, that's
For continuity,
probably what-
for continuity's sake.
That's probably what I'll be talking about. Okay, so thank you very much. Commissioners, you're not excused. We have more work to do.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you very
No
much.
problem.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. So.
Okay, so that, you don't need that. These are just a couple of vouchers. Let's talk about this.
All right,
I had an
Um,
email a couple minutes ago. It was Dennis Frayne saying that he was in the waiting room. He came in, right?
I did not see him.
I
Right.
did, yeah,
he
I did get it. I know Michael Connor was waiting for quite some time as well.
Oh, we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dennis, you know what
Sorry.
happens? We've got the screen going and we're looking at the plans. And the only reason I saw Michael is the little green name came up and I'm like, what's going on with that? And then I
Don't
realized-
let him fool you. It was deliberate.
Oh,
Thanks, Neil.
okay, so.
Thank-
Sorry,
We are
folks.
so sorry.
Oh. All right, moving ahead, we have, Ann has been working closely with the property owner for the land on Farm Street. As you are going by Antron on Farm Street and you cross 495, some of you will recall that we did a site inspection and a wetland delineation verification for a fellow who wanted to put up a billboard on the side of 495. It was a 19.5 acre site. substantial amount of resource area present. But it was a beautiful parcel. There was lots of potential for end usage by wildlife. And this person has decided he wants to donate the property to the commission. And Ann has been working diligently with him, and this project has moved at light speed. And we actually have a draft deed prepared. It's 19.5 acres. We have looked at the site. There's no real impacts from illegal dumping or usage. There's a very small trail, looks like intermittent use. We highly recommend that the commission accept this land. And in fact, we're in a position to be able to go before the selectmen on Monday and get their acceptance if we accept it now.
Does it abut any existing open space conservation land?
I'm sorry?
Does it abut any open space or conservation land?
It abuts, remember the heron rookery we found along Beaver Brook? It abuts half a mile of that.
No,
Great.
I had sent out a map to everyone a couple of days ago to show you
Yeah.
where the location was. Just so that you would be aware of the property that we were talking about. It's sort of landlocked, which is a good thing. But it's a very nice parcel.
Is it in the Dropbox?
Yeah.
No, it's.
Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, it was an
Email,
email.
Email, yeah.
It's an
Right.
email.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Is there a way you could call that up? We could make sure everyone's looking at the same thing here. And I see Mike Connors here, so
Hang on, I can tell you.
I have it if you need it.
Yeah.
okay.
You just share it. Well,
Ooh. How do I do that? Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Okay.
So,
Where that little bubble is. The little
yeah, you
bubble.
see the little blue bubble? That's the
Right there.
one. Okay, that parcel that Neil is outlining for us is it. It's 19.5 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Does it have,
I see the heron rookery there to the right of it. Yeah, that lighter green area. I remember that. Yeah.
It's very close to the immediate cone of influence to the town well behind Stallbert. There it is. There's the cone just outside of that. So it's easily within the 200-foot well protection zone. Another reason that it's worth doing. Does
Yes.
anybody have any questions?
and this is going to be a gift?
A
Yes,
gift.
outright gift.
In fact,
Well, not quite. We have to pay $6.05 in back taxes.
Ian paid it. It was important enough that she took her coffee money and paid the back taxes.
Paid it in loose change?
And pennies.
There
Yeah.
you go, in pennies.
No, I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
especially that close to the heron rookery. We don't often get the opportunity to acquire at such a reasonable rate, such
Yeah.
good
Agreed.
buffer protection and adjacent for maybe a nice nature trail down the road. People who go see a heron rookery.
Highly
which
possible.
Most people in town have no clue we even have in a resource like that in town.
Does it have a frontage? Does it have frontage on Farm Street?
There's a cul-de-sac there. And I don't think it, unfortunately, we can't enlarge the orthophoto. However, there's a cul-de-sac and it has frontage
Right in
right
here?
there.
Yeah.
There's frontage on the cul-de-sac, but we don't believe that it was sufficient to allow access for development of the property. And that was one of the holdups we had
Mhm.
with the sign, with the billboard. And So this person's been patient and he's decided he no longer wants to pay the taxes. And he contacted in, and this has only taken a couple months, which is like light speed.
Oh.
All right, so. I will accept the motion pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, to accept as a gift from Gary and Karen Martin a parcel of land located on Farm Street, shown as Lot 107 on Land Court Plan Number 13665X, filed with Certificate of Title Number 116650, Book 584, for conservation and passive recreation purposes.
So moved.
Michael,
Second.
Neil. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Neil's muted. I didn't hear his eye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. This is awesome. When we meet on our site inspection with Lou Petrosi on Saturday, we will bring the deed for signature. Then what I will do is on Monday during the day, I'll have my signature notarized and will be before the selectmen on Monday evening. And then we'll have town council record the deed, and it will be the fastest land acquisition the commission has ever done.
Right.
So thank you very much. I think that we'll have other things that have to be signed on Saturday. But we'll surprise you with those when we get to the field.
Any sense of whether Brian might be able to make it or Noel?
It's possible that that concussion was,
I don't think Brian's gonna make it, no.
I don't think he should be walking around in the
No,
field.
we've already talked. He's not well enough, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe Noel can make it. It'd be good for her to see it. Although didn't she come out on the last one to the site in Maple Street?
Who?
Noel.
I think Noel and Ariane said they could make it.
Oh, I didn't see Noel
Noel could not make it
tonight, so I didn't know if she was.
Yeah.
About it.
No,
Okay.
she's aware of it. She was in
Okay.
the field and didn't have her computer with her.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the more the better to see this particular.
I
site.
agree with that. I would like everybody to do it if we could. Maybe we can get Brian to come in tomorrow or Friday. Anything else?
No, we don't have any minutes ready, so.
Okay.
No, I finished the minutes for August 10th.
I think that we received, yeah, we have some minutes that we still have to review and get out to you.
I'm a little behind schedule. All right.
Take an extra couple minutes if you need them. All right. It's okay, never mind.
All right. If that's the case, then there's no new business. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you so
By
much,
unanimous
everyone.
vote,
Thank
we'll
you.
see you on Saturday morning.
Tina, I just wanted to let you know, I can give you the wording to that motion. I can send it to you tomorrow if you'd like. Are you there, Tina?
I hope so.
That's okay. I'll send you an email tomorrow.
What time Saturday? 8:30?
8:30.
Prospect Street, wherever we can park along there by those 81P lots.
Yes. Yeah, one of the houses is built.
Yeah,
The others are being cleared. So we'll park there and then walk in.
yeah.
All right,
All right.
Should be fun.
thanks.
If we haven't already, Anne, could you send out an email with a reminder about that?
I'm sorry, I didn't,
She wanted an email reminder on the meeting.
on what meeting?
I mean, on
The site walk?
We got one yesterday.
Yeah,
Didn't we?
I sent it.
Oh, okay.
I sent it today, I think.
Today or yesterday, one of the two.
Yeah, I think I sent it today.
Probably buried.
Ariane, we're gonna
Today.
have the police knock on your door Saturday morning at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we could just have them do like a wellness check.
It came in today.
My phone has been really messed up lately, and sometimes the alarm will just randomly not go off. So
Oh,
yeah,
I wish
So-
mine wouldn't.
it's been a
have a
exciting
backup.
couple months.
Have a backup plan.
I have like 4 alarms set to go off like 5 minutes apart because of that, and I just like keep adding more to it, and they just don't go off.
Oh, man. That's the worst. All right, so we have we had the motion, we voted,
All right,
so good night.
good night.
Good night, folks.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Take care.